Hi everyone, today I'm bringing you my first rogue guide for Season 4. I have a lot of builds prepared. I've been working on planners for basically the past week, like a few hours every day. I have a lot of stuff coming up, but I want to present you this build here. This is the one-shot rogue. You might have seen this already in the past. This is a build from Season 2, actually a clip from 6 months ago here, where I first played this build. And, well, you can kill bosses with this very, very quickly. And this is actually going to be kind of like the light at the end of the tunnel for the rogues, I guess. At least this is one good build that actually compares to what other classes can do. Rogues in general don't really have it easy next time around. They are remaining by far the worst class overall, I would say. And, well, at least I have this build, basically. So this is the one-shot rogue build. It doesn't really do anything besides killing bosses, so this is kind of like an important caveat here. This is exclusively designed to farm bosses and one-shot them, basically. And in the past, that was actually very easy to do because these world bosses here only had like 220 million life. A 4-man Duriel had like 180 million life, so that's basically nothing by today's standards, because these days we're going to be farming tormented bosses, and those tormented bosses in solo already have like yeah, between like 1 and 2 billion life or something like that. So if we try to do something like, let's say, 2 billion damage consistently, we need like a really big wombo combo setup, but it is possible. So we have discussed this a little bit because we are planning to put out a guide for this on Maxroll. Mippy is working on that, and we kind of got into a discussion about what we're going to do with the build exactly, how strong is it exactly, and with a bit of napkin math, well, we figured out, yeah, you can probably do 2 billion damage with this build. Not what you're seeing here right now, I'm just showing the boss fight, but with this rapid fire wombo combo build. So I'm going to present you how this works exactly, and this will be a staple if you are playing a rogue and you're doing boss rotations, because in the future we're gonna farm those tormented bosses basically all the time, at least at some point, once you can easily defeat them, because they only cost 3 times the amount of materials and get you 5 times the amount of rewards. So it's very valuable to farm those bosses, and boss rotations very soon after season start will definitely look for people that have the power to contribute on those tormented bosses. And if you're a rogue, you should probably play this build here. So even though you can't one-shot the boss in 4-man, you can probably take off something like 30%, maybe more, of the boss HP in a single nuke. And then you have other people in there, probably like a lot of minion necros. They're going to be very popular. Barbs in general are powerful. There's going to be tornado druids, and they kind of just finish the rest, basically. Or maybe even get to the point where I can do a second wombo combo. This is kind of like how that's going to go. And, well, as a rogue, you have this build to contribute. So the way this works is that we have Banishor's Talisman for a guaranteed overpower. You spend 275 resource, you kind of carry this proc into the fight, and then wait for the right moment. Then we have the Beastfall Boots, where when you use an ultimate skill, which is the Shadow Clone here, you get extra burst depending on how much energy you have for your next core skill. And then we have Rapid Fire, which is the best single target skill on Rogue, plus Precision for the guaranteed crit and also massive extra damage. So you have guaranteed crit, guaranteed overpower, big extra damage, and then we combine all of this with a bunch of other multipliers. There's combo points, there's, for example, some of the mods here like Expectant. We stagger the boss, so compared to in the past where we just walked up to the boss and we used Godslayer Crown, we had 3 seconds to do our thing. We're not doing that anymore because it's just not really worth it. You want to have a normal helm. There's a lot of extra resources, for example, for the Beastfall Boots. You need those extra legendary aspects, you need those stats, etc. And you just don't have really the power to just like walk up to the boss and one-shot it anymore. So Godslayer Crown is out. Instead, we go for a stagger variant. So there's also stuff like Frigid Finesse now. There's stuff like Mixed Cold Imbuement now. 40% extra damage against frozen targets, Retribution, and these kind of things. One other thing that you have to do here is the elements aspect. So you want to try to time staggering the boss with the elements rotation, but it's actually very easy because bosses are staggered for quite a long time. I think like 10 seconds or something. So you basically can try to play around this a little bit and just like pull off the nuke exactly when the elements either comes in or when it's about to phase out. So you just need to look at your bar a little bit and see where's the timer. But he has a 7-second timer, so it's pretty easy to do that. If you have a lot of trouble looking at your buff bar to see the elements rotation, you can also like swap elements, for example, with Retribution. So it's not that impactful, they have the same number. This is 30% damage. On the one hand, this is also 30% damage. So if you go for a stagger nuke anyway, you can also just swap this, and then missing the elements rotation is not that impactful. Then we also have the Shadow Clone here. I mentioned this. This gives us the Beastfall proc and the Tybalt's Will proc. So this is now 20% damage there. And we have a bunch of other modifiers. There's Frostbitten, so extra damage when they're frozen or stunned, which is a staggered boss. Concussive Strikes, again, 20% damage when they're dazed, which also works for staggered bosses. And we can basically use like even our defensive slots here as an offensive variant. Now, this setup is not exactly super tanky. In this setup, I only have 20k life, which is not really much by today's standards. Most builds will probably be something like 40k or 50k life or so for the high end in the pit at least. But those bosses are, at least from what we know, not that threatening if you don't have these new stacks that they do. So every time you get hit by certain abilities, maybe I can try to find like a clip here real quick. But basically you get like a stacking debuff, it's this here, from certain abilities of each of those bosses, and this kind of ramps up the damage that you take. So this means that usually at the start of the fight, these bosses don't really do much, and as long as you don't get hit by these specific abilities, in the case of Andario, for example, that's the rotating beam there, and the ground effects, and the poison nova, you're going to be fine, I think. Especially because we have a bit of extra defense, we have the Umbrus here, we have Dark Shroud, so that gives you a bunch of extra protection, and you should be fine. I tried to make this build not too squishy, because you actually have to survive for a little bit to get off the combo. Yeah, in addition to what I mentioned here, we have the Caltrops. So this is another 10% damage buff, stacking up to 45 with plus 5% per second. So you try to time this. It also helps to stagger the boss because you chill with the Caltrops. So you can have chill there, you can have the freeze here, for example, masterworked, or the tempered, on the helm. And then I have like an immobilized proc there on the chest, and we have like a stun proc here. So it will be very easy to just stagger bosses by just kind of like left clicking into them. So we basically walk up to the bosses and just left click with Heartseeker until they're staggered, and then you do your full combo, do your Caltrops, and so on. And we have a bunch of other multipliers here. For example, dash with enhanced dash, 15% extra crit damage. We use Heartseeker, an extra 15% crit damage there. And we have the advanced rapid fire, so you have to also weave in and evade here. 30% extra crit damage after you evade. And that is probably most of it here. And impetus actually, so extra 21% damage after moving 12 meters. So you basically try to combine all these things here. And the way that this will work is also we have tricks of the trade. Actually, I forgot to mention that. So this is here. So basically after using a cutthroat skill, which is dash, you can do 25% extra damage as well. So basically you walk into the fight. Before the fight, you stack out the 275 resources spent for the Oneshot's Talisman to have the combo ready. You start left clicking with Heartseeker until the boss is staggered. You put down the Caltrops. You press Cold Imbuement. You press Shadow Clone. You do an evade. You dash into the boss. That will probably make you move far enough to trigger the impetus, or maybe you do like a few steps and then trigger it. And then you have the tricks of the trade active, you have the Caltrops, you have the stagger, and you have all the other buffs basically on, and you press right click, and that's it. Boom, boss is dead. At least that's the theory. At least in solo this will work. Once you have a non-ultra optimized setup, in Foreman, I guess it will not be possible. However, you're going to do at least something like 1 to 2 billion damage or so if you have the entire combo and not like really bad rolls. So there are obviously a lot of different multipliers here that you have to try to get high rolls for. Oneshot's Talisman is one of them. It rolls 20 to 60%, for example. That's a pretty massive difference. Same here with the Beastfall boots. They got freshly nerfed. They're going to be 0.25 to 0.75. So obviously having a high roll here is pretty impactful because it multiplies all of your damage as well by a pretty large amount. And while the legendary aspects are probably not going to be such a big deal to get here, but some of the items might be. For example, you want to try to get a lot of rapid fire ranks. You want to try to masterwork this. You want to try to get a lot of crit damage. You want to try to masterwork this. You want to try to get a greater affix if you can, and these kind of things. But in general, this build will kind of come online once you have the entire combo, and you just try to get better and better gear and pull it off exactly that way. Now, I don't have actual footage to show you of this setup, exactly how it plays, because we used to one-shot bosses a little bit differently. But I guess the overall combo still remains the same. So you have to make sure you get your impetus, your tricks of the trade, your Caltrops. Then activate your combo points and your shadow clone, and boom, basically. That's how it's gonna go. When the season goes live and I have gathered a lot of boss materials, I'm absolutely going to respec to this setup as well, and then try it out in practice and see how it feels and see like how well we can optimize this. But I think for now we have a pretty solid setup here. So I'm gonna link this setup in the description, or if you're ever looking for any of my builds, you can always find it on my Discord as well. That is here in my Woody Builds channel. So here's where I put all my planners, and I have a lot of stuff already prepared, as you can see. Basically all of these are season 4 ready. Some of them will be made into maximum guides as well, like those two here. And well, as I mentioned, the one-shot rogue, Mippy is handling that one. He's also going to make a new one-shot max roll rogue guide, basically. So this is probably going to be a very similar setup to what I just described. For now, that's definitely something I'm looking forward to. Let's see how far we can push this, how much damage we can actually do, and maybe we can even squeeze out even more stuff in the end. But for now, it was kind of a lot of fun field crafting this setup. And if you're playing a rogue, well, you have something really cool to look forward to. So that's it for this build guide here. Hope you enjoyed this. I will have a lot more stuff coming up for season 4, so stay tuned. I have a lot of build guides that I'm making. I also want to make some of the boss guides because, well, not every build just one-shots them. So stay tuned for those. I've tried them all with different builds, and I have a lot of stuff to see there. And for now, I'll leave you with this. So hope you like this video, and see you guys next time.